Hello and welcome to Just Follow Joy. My name's Ariana. I'm a human design reader and teacher. And today I'm so stoked because we're talking about something fascinating and super practical, in my opinion, which is combining emotional freedom technique, also known as EFT or EFT tapping, with human design. And as a result, making it a lot easier to use your design to actually see the results that you're looking for. Because the thing that I hear a lot in the human design community, especially from my clients or the people who reach out to me, is, maybe I've been using my design for a while, or I'm just getting into this, but it doesn't seem like it's working. I don't feel like this can work. Or why is it working for this other person over there, but it's not working for me? This is just throwing me more into my challenges. This is throwing me more into my not self theme. Am I doing this wrong? Am I doomed? What's going on? And the answer is no, of course not. You're not doomed. This is how you're designed to thrive, right? And so, besides the fact that it can take a little bit of time to get used to getting back to what you're designed for, because we're conditioned to act so differently, a big reason is subconscious blocks. So, beliefs that you can't do this, fears that are holding you back because you might not feel it's safe to live your design. And so, where EFT comes in with this is that it's a really powerful technique to quickly and effectively root out a lot of those subconscious issues and rewrite them. And EFT is something, if you're watching on YouTube, I don't know if you saw that fly just zoom across the screen. I was like, no one will see that. And then I saw it on the screen myself. But basically, EFT, also known as tapping, is a system that has you dig into what you're feeling currently and then tap on certain physical points on the face or on the body to help release that. And it's very effective at introducing what you would rather feel and then also new stories into your subconscious. And so for me, I think this is such a wonderful combination, but it's not something that I've seen used in human design all that often, which is why I was so excited to talk to today's guest, Jas Maylin. Jas Maylin is an EFT practitioner and former psychotherapist turned author and success coach. She is passionate about helping sensitive yet ambitious women get unstuck and own their full potential, and combines her expertise in counseling psychology with human design and EFT tapping to help her clients make inner transformational shifts so they can sustainably take action towards creating a deeply fulfilling and meaningful life. She also has a new book coming out called Tap and Align to Your Human Design, which is going to be available in December 2024. So keep your eyes open for that. And when I met Jas and she told me that she does this, I immediately knew this was going to be something that's so helpful for people because I feel this really fills a hole in the market. And if you know me, with my need motivation in my design, you know that that's what I'm all about. I love to fill a hole. I love filling a good hole. I said it. I made the joke first. It's too late for you. You missed your chance. So Jas and I talk all about how EFT works, some practical examples, results from her life and from her clients' lives, and of course, how we can apply all of this to human design. She's super knowledgeable, and more than that, she's just so lovely and fun to talk to. I'm sure you guys will have a blast listening to her. I had a blast talking to her. So before we dive into that, just a quick reminder that if you like this episode, and if you want to get free human design information on the reg, don't forget to like this video if you're watching on YouTube and subscribe on whatever platform you are listening on so you never miss out. And with all that said, let's go talk to Jas. Okay, so Jas and I were just talking about something, and I told her, I think I've mentioned this before on the podcast, that I really should just start recording when people get into the room, but I never do. And then I miss these like juicy nuggets before we start talking, and I'm like, I'm just gonna start recording now. So we were just talking about, so Jas is sick right now, or she just got her voice back, I should say. And I was like, are you sure? Do you want to do this? She's like, no, I'm fine. And I was like, yeah, one time I had someone come on the show who had a migraine. And I was like, what? Why? Let's just reschedule. And you were like, yeah, it's that defined ego that doesn't let you do it. And I was like, she also had a defined ego. That makes so much sense. But it's interesting because she has 5125. So I would assume for her, it's more like, I can do this. I'm going to like jump in. I got the guts to do this and prove myself. But you have 4037 and you said that feels different for you.
Yeah. It's like we made the appointment. or like, we scheduled this, I'm going to do it. And also, what if someone needed to hear what I had to say and it impacts somebody, even just one person. So I'm like, no, you got to do it. Like, you can't bail. So, my voice I feel fine. I feel great. It's just the voice thing. Sounds a
Yeah.
little raspy.
Sexy. I love it. Whenever I lose my voice, I lean into it. Like ever since I was young, I remember in like middle or high school, one of my friends was like, "You sound like a motorcycle lady. You sound like a 50-year-old smoker." And I was like, I will take it. I will
Yeah.
love that. Are you kidding me? My whole life's been geared towards becoming that eventually one day, somehow without puffing on the jewel, or risking my life on a motorcycle. But for anyone listening, by the way, just to clarify what Jas was saying, what I was saying about 3740, we're talking about channel 3740, which connects the ego or heart center to the emotional solar plexus center. And this is also called the channel of bargains. So it's basically about being the giver to your community. And it's about both sides being in agreement on what that giving will be and what the giver will get back. So that's what she was saying about, this could give to someone, this could help my community, someone just like through what she's doing and the work she does. But, speaking of human design, we're obviously going to be talking about tapping most of this episode, which I am so excited about to hear from your perspective. But how did you find human design? How did you come across that? Or how did it find you?
I was my daughter was a newborn and I'm up all the time. And I just remember, like, I came across it once before. I knew I was a generator, but sometimes it's just like, it's too much. And then this time, I think I was like kind of burnt out, trying to figure out my path. Like, I was working, doing my doctorate, and I was like, this doesn't feel very fulfilling anymore. And I'm burnt out. So then I came across it again, and I was just reading through like Instagram posts. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is resonating so much. And if it's true that this is going to help you align or help you work with your energy better, my first thought was, well, I'll just try and get out of burnout. Like, it's like, okay, let's see what maybe I'm pushing too hard with this center or this or that. And then I realized, as I was like, okay, go back to the basics. It's like strategy and authority. So I'm a 3-5 emotional generator. I'm supposed to experiment. So I gave myself permission to like, okay, what do I actually want to do? So I started doing that. What actually lights me up? I made a list of all the things that I hated doing. And I like quit my job at the university. I'm like, oh, do I just quit my doctorate or do I keep going? But I didn't yet. I had to wait to quit. Right. So it kind of came to me late at night. I just got sucked in again. And it was amazing the way that I was like, okay, I think I was desperate actually. I think I read it and I was like, I hope this helps me. I need help. Because I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I feel like I'm doing everything else for other people and what other people expect of me. And if I can connect back to my own energy, because that's what it's like. It's your unique energetic blueprint is what like you read about human design. You're like, okay, well let's see. That's how I came across it. Like late at night, read it, went down the rabbit hole, listened to all these videos and stuff. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to take this experiment on.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, first off, such like the generator burnout story, right? I feel like all of us have gone through that point where like, okay, I'm gonna write out everything I like and everything I don't like, and like the don't like column is like, how is this so big? How did this happen? No wonder I'm burnt out. I hate all of this stuff. And then like getting to the point of desperation, like, oh my God, so there. And I think so many of us can connect with that in our career. In particular, things just aren't working there when like our work is such an important part of being a generator. But also for you, the whole thing of like living this for other people, again, a generator story, but with that sun and gate 37, which is the gate of community and, others and keeping people together through what you do, like that, that makes so much sense to me. And I don't have that in my chart. I have single definition, here to focus on my joy and do my thing and be in my body. But I do have that undefined emotional solar plexus center. So the fear of confrontation and letting people down is fierce. But yeah, well, I'm so glad that you found it. And on the other hand, so tapping is part of your practice too. which I think is such a beautiful modality and can be so helpful for people. So how did you come across that? Was it sort of like a similar thing of like, I just need something that's going to help me?
Yeah, I think so. I followed the breadcrumbs. So I had a psychotherapy practice. I worked with empaths and highly sensitive women. So, um, I was kind of in like, I have this psychotherapy practice. These cognitive models aren't working in terms of like, talk therapy. Like it was good because they could make sense of things. But when you look at really treating a person, it's like you need to incorporate the body. And I found that tapping could cut through a lot of that. So if I'm processing a traumatic event, like sometimes there are people who can talk about it and they can like regulate themselves as they're talking about it. But tapping, I did energy medicine, and then I found David Feinstein, who is Donna Eden's husband, and he did tapping. So I started learning about it. I started doing it on myself, and I thought, oh, this is like, it really does work so quickly. So I thought, okay, I'm going to train in it clinically to help people. So that's kind of how I came across it. I studied, or I looked at energy medicine. Then I got into tapping and the energy meridian points. I started doing Qigong and working with like the energy system. And then I brought it clinically into practice.
Mm. When you were, I hope you don't mind me asking, but when you
Yeah.
were trying this on yourself, what kind of things were you using it for?
Stress, just
Mm.
nervousness. I think I was at a point in my life where I knew that I needed to, like, I had bigger dreams. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening where you're like, okay, I'm doing this right now, but I feel like my potential is greater. But every
Mhm.
time I would step out of my comfort zone, I had like this Instagram page, terrible for a 5 line. I was trying to teach people teach people about like being an empath, and people were like, oh, can you fix me, and like DMing me. I'm like, oh, that was not a good venture, but anyway. So
You had to try it with the 3 line, right?
I had to try it.
And
I
hey,
remember
wait,
like,
before you go on, I just also wanted to say like following 3 5s is probably one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself if you're like going into your human design journey, because not only have they tried this stuff and they will universalize it and share it with you, they will be so honest. Like there's something about you 3 5s that I can hear you're like, yeah, I fell on my face. And I'm like, fascinating. And what did you learn? And what can I
yeah,
learn from that?
right,
But
yes.
anyway, yeah.
So I started this. I positioned myself as, you know like, here I can give you this information, and it was just not a good place. Like, this is not therapy. Like, I can't be helping you, I can't save you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I actually tapped on getting out of my comfort zone, like being able to do an Instagram live. Like, I'm just somebody who was so used to doing one-on-ones and containing my knowledge in a one-to-one setting and talking to somebody, and like, it's fine, but like to share it out in the world, and people have judgments about it or can say things about it. It was really scary for me. So I would tap on a lot of that. And I was a new mom too. So
Mm.
like stress, anxiety, burning out. I was trying to do, like I said, my degree. I was just literally doing it all. And I was just trying to find ways to like tap into my potential. But I knew that I needed to take little steps, because every time I would like put myself out there, I would like want to just hide and like run, and it just sweating because I was so nervous, even though it's like, I'm home making a video, but to put it out in the world, I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh my God, people are going to say something about it, so I use tapping for a lot of that, like just stress, anxiety, and building my capacity to hold more success and visibility.
Mm. That is so good. And yeah, I think so many people can relate to that too, right? Because it's the subconscious and it's what's held in our bodies. So for me, there are so many things where I'm like, all right, like logically, I was talking to my coach about this. I was like, logically, this is a really stupid thing to spend my life worrying about. This doesn't make any sense. I don't want to do this. This is dumb. But the subconscious obviously doesn't think that way. And I'm sure that there are ways beyond myself as a non-psychiatric professional or psychological professional that you can see this manifest in the body and through behaviors. But why is it that tapping can do this? Like, what does it tap into that
Yeah.
CBT does not tap into or other forms of therapy don't?
Right. Yeah. There's research on CBT versus EFT as well. So it's really fascinating. I interviewed Dr. Peta Stapleton and she laid that out. And just to review that study, basically, there are, it was still helpful to have CBT in comparison to EFT. But EFT, when they followed up with participants or the people who were part of the study, 12 months later, their symptoms never returned. So, CBT does help. So obviously it's good to have as well. But EFT obviously does something like just greater, like it releases it from the body. So getting into that, basically it rewires your response to stress. So I think oftentimes we often wondered, why does EFT work? It's like it looks strange. You're like, why am I tapping these points on my face? But now there's research that where you're tapping is actually the meridian pathway. We call it like an energy pathway, but it's actually a physical pathway. It's actually a physical system in the body. It's called the primal vascular system. So now science is showing us that it's not just like energy that was mapped out in traditional Chinese medicine. Like this is real. Like you can see it in the body. So what happens is when you tap the points that's laid out on the acupuncture points, it impacts the brain. So you can see that the brain is like calming. Dr. Peta Stapleton has a wonderful video on YouTube where she's hooked up to machines that show like the brainwave states. And when she taps through the points, you're not even saying anything, the brainwave states slow down. And you know that if you're like into hypnotherapy and stuff like that, like when we talk about subconscious rewiring, so it's not only looking at your stress response and rewiring your stress response to, even a perceived threat. Like you can put yourself into a stress response when you're just thinking about something scary or anxiety inducing or anything, right? Like that physiological response. So when you tap, that slows it down. But also rewiring your subconscious mind, it actually puts your brainwave states into a lower brainwave state, which we know that's like the subconscious, where you can start to rewire your subconscious. So then that's when you can like tap in, maybe more positive affirmations or a new way of looking at things. So the points actually do matter. And there's studies on sham points where like if you tap on your elbow or if you tap on like, somewhere that's not on the meridian energy system, when you compare the two, there is a significant difference in how well people do when you're actually tapping the points versus not. So I know it looks strange, but there's actually a lot of science behind it, and it treats there's a lot of clinical studies on like anxiety, depression, PTSD. So like in the mental health field, but also chronic pain, eating, like Dr. Peta Stapleton does a lot on, or she did a lot on eating disorders. So cravings, food cravings, things like that, athletic performance, right? So it's a really great thing to do when you're like, either a business owner, like reducing your stress, clearing your emotions, things like that.
Oh my God. Okay. So many things came up for me. But first off, the fact that without even any affirmations or, verbalizing what it is you want to change, which is, if anybody's familiar with tapping, you've probably gone through some tapping sessions doing that. The fact that you can just tap on its own and change the response of your nervous system is so incredible. And so it also really makes me think of my friend, Tara Brunette, who's a manifestation coach. She had this episode on her podcast recently talking about like really the importance of relaxation in manifestation, because, rewiring your subconscious beliefs can open you up to, your body will help you manifest what you want. Basically, you'll be putting yourself in the situation where you can manifest more easily. And, that means like calming your nervous system down. And I'm really just putting these two things together because I actually didn't know that that's what tapping did. I knew that it helped rewire, but I didn't know that so does it put you into the parasympathetic system instead? Okay. So that's why this is so powerful.
Yes. Your nervous system. Yeah.
And then, so for you, you talked about doing this when you were stressed or before you want to take some kind of action. So how has that actually shifted things for you? Like, how did that shift the actions that you were taking? Like you felt the stress about doing something, you tapped, and then what were the results from that?
Yeah. So as I was tapping, I felt like the thing is, it's a really great question that you're asking, because it's like, how do your actions actually change? Well, every time, that when you start doing things and take action, that's how you build your confidence. So if I had, an interview to do, or if I had to make a video or something, every time I would calm myself, be able to push through and do it. Because, when you're in a stress response, your inner critic is like wild. It's like trying to keep you safe, right? It's survival. So when you're in a sympathetic state, you want to like run, you're making up excuses. Like you're like, I can't do this, is not for me. And so that narrative runs into your mind, right? We know that the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all connected. And I'm somebody who's like, no, I've worked with a ton of people, saw that they can change their life. And I've also seen a lot of stuck people and how they resort back to the old behaviors, right? So I'm like, I'm testing this out on myself. So I would slowly just start taking that action that I knew that would build my confidence, and things shifted dramatically for me in terms of what I was able to accomplish. Like, I did the whole Ultimate Human Design Summit and like collaborating. I felt like a nobody for a long time. And I always say this, where you're like in the sidelines and you're like working on yourself and building capacity to actually be able to do things that you dreamt of doing. Like I created a EFT tapping into aligned action planner that I self-published, because I'm like, I think I want to write a book one day. And so I was manifesting that. And so I started doing this tapping thing, clearing my resistance around, why I couldn't actually do it, why I couldn't like take the action, all the emotions, all the inner critics. I just started tapping all that away. And here I had, this confidence to go and pitch my book to people. And then lo and behold, all that resistance cleared. And I felt like I had this, I don't care. I can self-publish. I can just do it myself. Or I just felt like this deep belief in myself. And sure enough, yeah, someone picked it up. I was able to self-publish. I showed myself I could. I worked through all that resistance and created something amazing. So yeah, when you talk about tapping and taking action, as you take that action, you build that confidence. You realize that you're just an observer of your thoughts. Like they're not you, and your emotions can take hold of you so much. And just make you stuck, right? And so I was kind of like, I don't want that for myself. I want to move through these emotions. Science says emotions only last 90 seconds. It's the stories we put on it. It's the beliefs that we hold, right? So I'm like, well, if I can move through this emotion and take this action and keep moving, maybe it's my generator self. I'm like, I can keep doing this. Your life can change so quickly, and in ways that you can never expect to happen.
Yeah. And I'd also like to make a note. Jas was not part of the Ultimate Human Design Summit. She created and put on the whole thing herself, which is incredible. And I remember I was emailing you and I was like, you've done such a great job. You're like, thanks, it's my first one. I was like, what? It was just so well put together, so organized. You had Karen Curry Parker on there, which was just like, that's such a big get. And you had Eden as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just awesome human design people. And it's incredible how much tapping has played into this and how much in small steps as well. I'll tell you that's something I'm really not good at and I'm really working on is allowing myself to go slower and take time and take smaller steps. Oh, and we both have gate 9 in our charts. So you have 52-9, which makes a little bit more sense and how it's like a little more consistent for you. But for anyone listening, that's the gate of small steps. It's the taming power of the small. So it's basically moving a mountain by moving each rock rather than like running at the mountain and trying to like push it to just like move forward.
Push it.
Which is like very I have channel 360, which so that's like very me, where I'm like, I just do nothing for a while and then I run at that mountain and knock it over. And in between, I'm just very sad. Because nothing, no mountains are moving. But yeah, that's definitely something I need to lean into a lot. And I think it's just a lesson that many of us can hear. And sounds like tapping can really help you with. Do you have any stories that stand out to you about using tap on your clients and how that's given them relief or helped them change their lives?
There's been a few. I think the biggest impact that I've had with tapping, I guess this is more like clinically, but she was an entrepreneur, or she is an entrepreneur, very successful, um, you know, like $300,000 a year, things like that. She was diagnosed with cancer, and she came to me. And it's funny, like the privilege I have, or the honor that I have to be able to work with certain people in this capacity. Like mental wellness is everything, and you realize that outward success, it looks great, you think this person's doing amazing, but then you really get into what's actually going on, and how much they like don't like themselves, or how much they are so hard on themselves. And I think the biggest thing with the person that I worked with, using tapping, is that we got to clear all that negative. Like, she just blamed herself, right? Maybe if I was better here, maybe if I didn't do this, maybe if I don't know. We just had to go through all of the negatives. And I know with EFT, people are probably like, you look at it and you do focus on the negatives, but I promise you that's a good thing, because you're actually accepting where you are. You're actually looking at your situation, and then you can look at the positives, right? It's
Mm.
People are scared to look at the negative. I think my third line loves this. It's like, no, be honest with yourself, with where you are. And it can feel really shitty, but I promise you, as you tap, you know that it's rewiring your stress response. You're going to move through it. And it's so this is beautiful with working with her. Um, we looked at all her inner critic, everything that she was hard on herself. And then at the end of it, it was like, why am I so hard on myself? Like, I deserve love. I deserve the love that I've been giving to others. I never deserve to be this hard on myself. And I know it doesn't sound like a big success story, but to change someone's outlook and clear those emotions of being so hard on themselves, they went on and they're doing great now. They went through, chemo and all that stuff. But just to be able to, like, it kind of went into inner child work, and believing that she was worthy of love and care, and that she could get through hard things. And who knows, like, right, if you go into the mindset, let's say we didn't do that work and she's going through the mindset of just like, oh, I deserve this, or like whatever, how much different that experience of going through treatment would be. So I know that was like a little more deeper example, but the success, or like the thing there, is really just like seeing people cultivate self-compassion for themselves. I'm very passionate about, because I think without it, that's like foundational to change. Like, if you're not on your own side as you take those small little steps towards whatever it is you're working on, like, and you're waiting for other people, or you're just being hard on yourself and self-critical, like, that's just gonna ruin your spirit, whatever you're about to work on. And to see that change that she was able to shift, even just through, I think we met 4 times. And we were able to kind of clear all that, and she just became more positive and optimistic, and was able to go through treatment in that state instead of a self-critical state. I'm like, oh, I feel so good about that. Like, I'm so happy that I was able to help facilitate that change.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a small story at all, especially because, I mean, I don't need to tell you this, Jas, but at the end of the day, what we're really looking for is the feeling from anything we have. And whatever we seek really is, we're trying to, in some way, give ourselves that feeling. Even people who want to manifest more money, it's to give yourself some kind of feeling of security, of comfort. It's not the actual money, it's not the actual thing.
Yeah.
It's the sense that you get from that. And also, going through cancer treatment, I know somebody who's going through it now. That is such a tough thing. So any relief, I know personally, if I was going through it, and from what I've seen from this person, like any sense of relief mentally and physically that you can get during that is a huge thing. So that's a beautiful story, because this person I know, a really, really big part of why it has been such a big struggle is physical pain, but is the mental anxiety was like through the fucking roof. This person couldn't even watch their favorite sport anymore, which was such a, because they've been watching this for years and it's always made them happy. And so what I'm trying to say here is that that is huge. So thank you for sharing that story. And at the end of the day, anyone listening, like, even if it is that you only change this part within you, like, this is like our external is a reflection of the internal. It's a projection of the internal anyway. So if we can work on that, that is wildly, wildly powerful. And honestly is like what we are meant to be focusing on in the first place anyway.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So that's all really good. And I think on its own enough to convince people to at least try this, right? So the thing that's really unique about Jas, though, is that she doesn't just practice and use EFT on its own. You're combining it with human design, which I think is so cool. And I have like no clue how it works. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So this idea came to me. I think it was my third line pessimism, where, when someone reads their chart and they're like, okay, like this isn't me, or, that like this is like they don't believe it. And what good is it if you don't believe something you're reading? You're like, will anything actually ever change? Right. When we talk about subconscious beliefs, when we talk about, I want to align to my human design, but, and that's all the excuses we have. Those are all of our blocks that we have, right? And so I was like, because I kind of did that too a little bit. Like I'm like, oh, is this really me? Okay, let's see. But I use that as a map to look at. Okay, what blocks? This is what it's saying, and this is how I actually feel. Like, so when I said about being a third line, giving myself permission to actually go and experiment with things, I had to reassess my relationship with failure and shame about failure. So I actually wrote down all the times I thought I failed and tapped through those situations to be able to align to my third line self. Because what good is it if I'm like, okay, let's just experiment? I know that emotions are going to take me down. I know my subconscious beliefs are going to take me down. So let's clear it before we start stepping into this new identity, or, what's laid out for me. And so that's something practical, 5 line, that I did, right? Like I made the list, and it's all in my book, like just like little practical ways we can look at, this is your type. Okay, this is what it says about you. And then I list 30 limiting beliefs. I don't know if they're going to make me write more, but I will put 30 limiting beliefs and 30 setup statements for like a generator, right? Like it's hard for me to say no. Like saying no is scary, things like that. So looking at common limiting beliefs we would have that would stop us from aligning to our potential in our human design. So I did type and profile lines in the book. Centers were a little more complicated to put in at a deadline, and I'm like, maybe that's like a second book, but that's how I'm doing it. It's like looking at your limiting beliefs and what you can clear, what stories you can clear, what emotions you can clear to actually feel like that generator, the manifester, right? Manifestors, how much pain could they have from being suppressed of their power, right? So yeah, that's the gist of how I'm combining the two.
Yeah. Manifestors listening as well. This episode is coming out after our episode with Holly Herbig, all about manifestors. Again, we talk about the manifestor wounding, preventing them from initiating and doing things like that. So if you were like, this is great, but I need help on actually releasing that from my body, well, here you go. Right on time. This is what you're looking for. Generators, if you're afraid you can't wait to respond, you don't know how to reprogram that in yourself, this is a really great opportunity. And I love this so much because I've said many times on my podcast, I say this to my clients, I say this to myself. Human design is wonderful. It is an energetic blueprint, like you said, it's a map, but human design isn't the whole thing. And, I've talked to many people who are like, yeah, this is awesome. But if you don't work on your subconscious, like that's something that applies to everyone, regardless of your design. So having these, I'll call them external tools, really, they're just another part of life, but having these tools to work on yourself, like this is crucial for using your design, to work. And actually bringing up Holly again, she was talking about how like when we think of manifestors who really go out there and initiate and they're powerful and they don't give a single fuck what people think, that's a very aligned manifestor. But many manifestors out there aren't like that because they have been through so much conditioning, just like the rest of us. So have you used, like, do you use human design with your clients? I've literally never asked you this.
Yeah. So I got rid of my psychotherapy license. So I always felt like I was put in a box. So I just didn't renew my psychotherapy license. So
You broke the bond.
I broke the bond. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like if I started bringing it into therapy itself, that I don't know, like, because like you can report people and you can it's like very, I don't know, they have to be like that, right? And so I felt really odd saying that I am providing psychotherapy, and it's a great field and I do take it seriously. I worked in it for many years and helped people who had very significant mental health issues. So I don't know. I just like, okay, I'm just going to be my own undefined identity center. Okay. I just got to go and do my thing on my own. And so, yes, so I have more of a coaching practice. Well, this season of life, I don't take on a lot of one-on-ones. It's more like trying to find groups, like tapping groups, community calls, things like that. But yeah, there are clients that I've worked with one-on-one that I was able to bring in therapy. I would say, hey, if you're interested, a lot of empaths and highly sensitive women who were my clients were very spiritual, right? But it was just finding that balance, like ethically, how to like, you're treating anxiety and depression and also like talking about that. I don't know. It was hard for me to
talking about neutrinos.
right. Like you're like, I gotta stay professional in this one way. But then it's funny though, as soon as I left and like became a former psychotherapist, all my clients are like, this is way better, Jas. Like you can actually talk about stuff. Like we like you better this way because you were trying so hard to keep it, professional. But I took it seriously. I took that identity seriously. And then when I dropped it, it was like, now I can just be my full spiritual, self, and people liked it better. So here I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kudos to you also for keeping that integrity up, right? Because that's a fine line to walk. Completely understand. And I know other people who were psychotherapists who left because of that, restriction, which I think personally, I think is a better option than staying there and trying to like make a whole system conform to this different way that you want to do and possibly risk getting reported for malpractice in some way. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, also, I know I've been talking about the 3 line a lot, but you're just the quintessential 3/5, in my opinion, of just like, this isn't working anymore, burn this to the ground, and then universalize what I have learned from that, but I don't necessarily have to stay with it forever. And again, with that undefined identity center, I think that's such a powerful lesson too, because it is so easy for us to box ourselves into something and be like, yes, this is what I am, whether it's because it gives me some kind of solidity in myself and some kind of foundation, or because I just want other people not to freak out if I don't have a label. But it is also cool to me that the one gate that you have out of your G center is gate 13, the gate of the listener. So of course you would go into this kind of work, right? Like, you'd be really good at it.
Yeah. That was learning about the undefined identity center was a huge thing too for me, because it's like, no, I'm not meant to just like stay in this box. And so, yeah, everything, like I was working towards my doctorate in counseling and psychotherapy. Like I thought that was like my label, and to build a bigger practice and have people work under me. And like, but that was the dream of everybody else around me. And then, so really to burn it all down, I think we've talked about this before on my podcast, where it's like the disappointment. They're like, what are you doing? You're so successful in all areas. You have this beautiful family, you've got this, you're doing this degree and you're almost done. You have a year left. Okay. And like, you've got this practice and it's successful. And then just being like, not doing it anymore, guys. I like human design and I like tapping, and I'm just going to, those are my practical tools that I'm going to just start using and combine with my existing knowledge and stuff. Yeah, people were not like, my immediate family and like people around me are like, are you nuts? I'm like, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're just realizing this now. That's what I tell people when I make a decision that they don't understand. I'm like, you're just realizing that I'm insane now. Like, you've known me for years. Clearly, I was reflecting back a part of you, the sane
Right.
person.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Was that I have a question too with your undefined crown and mind center. Was it difficult to ever feel like you didn't have this one unified field, like this one answer from the modalities that you learned, where it was like, there's one thing that makes sense? And did you feel a pressure to do that when you were in psychotherapy or when you were learning this kind of thing?
Oh my gosh. Yes. So, in terms of feeling pressure of like other people being so certain, yeah, like I went through a lot of modalities. I studied a lot of different, like psychodynamic therapy, ACT. There's all different types of approaches and modalities. And I feel like I took a lot of trainings to like see what I liked. And now I kind of like make it make sense in my own mind. So I've come to that point. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because you have access to so many different things. Like you said, you've learned so many different modalities. And it's so funny because I talked to a 3-5 manifester who also had channel 1648. And I'm like, no wonder all of these certifications, all these different things, right? And just end up being such naturals at them too, because you have that ability to really dig deep into it, even, without the one line. It's incredible.
Everyone thinks I'm a one line.
Yeah, I was a little surprised actually when I found out that you weren't.
Yeah. See, I just have to go deep into certain things, and then I got to try it and I got to see what resonates with me. And then I kind of go develop, that, I guess, that mastery, or like really try and practice it and get better and better. Even though in my mind, I'm like, I'm not good enough. That's like one of my biggest limiting beliefs, is like, I still don't know enough. Even talking in this podcast, I'm like, did I explain that properly? Or like, oh my, like that internal dialogue. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this as they're like listening.
I get that. But it's funny too how, first off, differently other people can see ourselves, because I see you as so incredibly knowledgeable, but also funny because I look at your chart and I'm like, what an amazing chart to have, right? Like you have 1648 and then you have 952, which is like, I can sit with this, because for me, it's like, I can see little details, but I can't really my body doesn't feel like it has that root center pressure of stillness of gate 52 to actually stay with something. So it's like, I can see the small steps, but for me, that results in this feeling of like, what's the point? I can't do it. I can't sustain this. And I'm actually just realizing that, telling you this now,
Yeah.
that this is one of my limiting beliefs from my design. And it's so cool too. I think I didn't mention this before, but one thing that I love about what you do and about hitting these limiting beliefs too is because as we look at our designs, there can be some interpretations, even really positive interpretations of certain parts of our design where we are easily conditioned, where it feels like that's kind of a doomsday prediction, right? So like for me, I could take that and be like, I will never have, or I will always feel, right? Because it's not that I never have it. We have transits. Other people will come into my aura and provide gate 52 for me. But I will never feel like I have the true support from my body to stick with these details long enough to move the mountain rock by rock. So if I believe that, that's just as powerful to me as that being energetically encoded into me.
That's exactly it. That's what I want people to realize, is that, what you believe, you'll see reflected in your actions and behaviors. And I'm sure a lot of us know this, but our subconscious mind dictates like over 90% of our behaviors, right? So consciously you can say, oh, I want to do this. I want to create this. I want to write a book. I want to whatever. But if you don't actually feel safe in success, if you don't actually think it's possible, if you have all these beliefs that are kind of, I call them, I don't know if you know Carolyn Miss. She's a energetic healer. She talks about calling them weights. So wait and wait. So how long for something to actually come into your reality is based on the weights you have, like energetic weights. So your limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So the weight, WAIT, how long you wait for things is based on your weight. I call them ankle weights. I forget what I think she called them anchor weights, but I call them ankle weights. Like your beliefs are holding you down and things aren't going to happen for you if you have a lot of weights. Then that's why I love EFT, because you can start to see, where am I holding on to these limiting beliefs when there's something waiting for me that I know that I can feel, but what's limiting me? It's like that resistance. It's those subconscious beliefs. And that's why EFT, I find, shifts them, because then you don't have to wait as long. And I experienced that firsthand with this book deal. Like I just released the limiting beliefs, the resistance every day. I just kept writing it, thinking like, this is a great book. Anyone would be happy to have this. And if they don't, like, I just built myself up, my confidence up, and just took that small little steps. And then by the time you know it, like, it just happened. I'm like, and I remember my friend saying, I know you said you wanted to write a book, but I thought that was a 5 to 10 year plan. I didn't think you'd be writing it like now. Like, me neither. Like, I had no idea, but it happened like that. And I think it was because of the work I was doing with releasing the weights that I was like holding myself back, right? What I was believing. I truly started to rewire that it is possible for me, that I do feel safe in like being seen and people reading this book, even if they hate it, that it's okay. And not holding myself back in any way, in like, even though thinking that those things, right? It's like, whatever, who cares? It's okay. I've cleared like the fear around it. Let's just keep moving. Let's keep moving forward. And that's what I've done.
Yeah. Sorry that I laughed. I was just having a hard time imagining someone like hating reading a list of limiting beliefs. They're like, fuck this. And they like throw it across their room. And like get upset about that.
Right? You never know.
I get it.
Right.
Like the fears I have of, certain people going through my course and like what they'll say or what they'll think, like there are too many jump cuts, it's like, and get enraged by that. But I get it. I absolutely get that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so just a couple of questions left for you. So if people want to come learn from you, if they want to learn more about what EFT is, because we actually didn't really talk about what it is, but that's fine because you can learn it really quickly. We talked about the science behind how it works, but it's a very simple process actually. But if they want to learn how to do that, if they want to learn from you, maybe even work from you, if that's possible, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm having a baby in 6 weeks. So I would say,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm 33. I have a scheduled C-section, but yeah, no, I am having a third baby.
I'm just like dying how this never came up. I'm actually in shock.
I'm trying not to like go into a coughing fit. Like, just, you're like so surprised. I'm like, I thought I told people this.
No. That is so
okay.
funny.
Well,
anyway, go on.
Yeah. So what I was going to say was, if you want to work with me, I'm going to start offering more healing EFT groups, like group coaching for inner child and like stuff like that. So go to my website, jasmaylin.com. And then if you sign up for the email list, I send out emails of when I like offer. Sometimes I throw out one-on-one sessions to book. Like I said, I'm not very consistent. I stay home with my kids most of the time, actually. So in this season of life, I'm just working. I'm running another summit, Tap into Abundance Summit. So that's all about EFT tapping and clearing your limitations, like we were just talking about today, of like what you want to attract, what you want to move towards, career, health, love. We know abundance isn't just money, but there is a presentation on money. But yeah, so more summits, more groups after I have the baby though. So the summit is running 2 days after I have surgery with the baby. Right. I'm like, I'm going to be on my ass anyway, because it's surgery. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be up like every couple hours. And honestly, it's like, I can prepare it all. And then it's like when it runs, all I have to do is like check emails and make sure everything is running smoothly. I'm like, I can do it. So that's when it's running, everybody. I will be home with a newborn and it's going to be wonderful. So I've got speakers lined up and everything for there. So jasmaylin.com, sign up for the email list and I'll keep you posted on what I'm working on and what I'm offering.
Awesome. And we have that in the summit. That's amazing. If I may, I will put the information down below for people to find.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm putting you in an awkward position if I ask this question, your answer isn't your newborn baby, but what is bringing you so much joy right now?
I think what's bringing me so much joy right now, I think that I have the ability to be really, really excited about my work. Even though I have 2 kids at home, I'm having another one. I have a puppy. We got a puppy before I found out I was pregnant. So now we have a puppy and a baby. So the puppy's not even going to be one when the baby's here. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? Tribal energy. Let me tell you, like I have so much tribal circuitry, right? Yeah. Like it's just like take care of everybody and build a family. But anyway, but I would say what's bringing me joy is the fact that I can continue to work and be excited about my work and create things for people to make an impact in the world. That is like the greatest thing for me. Like being able to sit here and talk to you and have this podcast, be able to set up another summit, like how cool is life and like be home with my kids, like it took a while to get here, but I'm here and it feels really good.
Well, Jas, you rock. You already know. Everyone listening, you rock. And I will talk to you next time.